Well,
Yeah.
so sorry for the first 10 minutes if you couldn't hear anything. It was just mumbling about hydroponics anyway.
Now we're back to the real show, what we're really going to talk about.
Yeah. And so what were we going to talk about?
The subject that came up tonight with us is consumerism and how like it's being thrown at you every which way, but I'll let you bring up the subject that you were telling me about that kind of got us on the conversation.
Well, yeah, so it was just recently my son's birthday. And so he showed up with this insulated cup. And I was just tripping out about this cup because, number one, like we were talking about in the 80s and 90s, like you didn't walk around with water. You didn't walk around with a cup. You didn't need it. Nobody died. And if you got a drink, you know, you were outside playing with your friends, and then you'd maybe find some stranger's house and you'd crank on their garden hose. You drink out of the garden hose for a couple minutes, and then you just play the rest of the day. You never drank, and nobody was dehydrated. Like I don't know of anybody that had any health issues or anything like that.
Not either.
But then all of a sudden we got this idea that we need to drink, and I'm guilty of it. I carry my water everywhere I go because I love not being thirsty. I feel like I get thirsty often, and I don't know, like I love my rainwater. But anyway, so he's got this cup, and I'm thinking about how we got to carry it around and how they like allow it in school. But he's got like this 40-ounce, it's like a coffee cup, an insulated coffee cup, ice in it all day, you know. And so it's weird that we're doing that. But then I'm sitting there looking at him, and it was just his 10th birthday. And I was like, how much does that cup cost? And like $60 for this cup. And I'm like, does it trip anybody else out that we're using $60 cups to walk around with? You know, like if everybody was walking around with like a bottle of water that costs like 25 cents or something, like that would make sense. But we're all walking around with like designer mugs now to drink out of all day long. And you're telling me there's women that are matching their cups to their outfits and shit? And like,
yeah, there's these really popular. The thing is you know that there's these popular cups right now, and then they're going to go out of style, and then it's going to be the next cup. But yes, there's these popular cups, and several people have them matching their outfits by color.
well, then they had Starbucks cups. Like Starbucks does that too, right? So you gotta have a water cup, and then you gotta have like a Starbucks cup.
Yeah.
And then like how many other cups? I don't even know.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, this is like, what are we doing? You cannot turn like left or right without someone trying to sell something to you, and especially on your phone. I don't know if you feel that way. I feel like,
Oh yeah.
turning on the TV, I was trying to watch YouTube tonight, and literally microgreens came on, and I was like, how the fuck? Like, it comes on the TV. You're just constantly bombarded with being sold things, and I know you like that to a degree.
I don't like being sold things. I like being marketed to, because I don't like seeing commercials about lipstick and stuff. Like if I'm going to see a commercial, I want to see a commercial about stuff that's interesting. That's all. I don't like being sold to though at all.
Yeah, I get that. But it's just consumerism. It's just getting out of control. And I know for me, we've talked about, for those of you who haven't seen our episodes, go back and listen, but we've talked about how we quit social media for a while, kind of towards the end of lockdown COVID. Maybe mid-end, we just quit using social media. And for me, when we started back up, I was like, I felt like I had transported to a future of like literally like almost like the Jetsons feeling of like when I was on social media, I felt like it was just a selling tool. It had completely changed in that short amount of time.
Yeah.
For me, it's just constant bombardment with things that you need, and even now 10-year-olds need mugs.
Well, yeah, and I think to me it's like if you stop for a minute and you think about that, like a cup. This is a cup that holds liquid in it. It's a cup. $60 for a cup. Like, think about that. Like that's insane.
Well, another thing too is you have to think about is how long is he going to use this cup?
No, but that's the thing is he's got multiple cups.
Oh.
Whoa. What happened?
I kicked the table. This is our bloopers episode.
Yeah. So we're saying, like, so his cup, that's the funny thing is, like, so he's got a $60 cup. This 10-year-old has a $60 cup that he carries around. But like, these guys have, like, so many cups. I don't know how much they're all worth, but I'm like, where all these cups come from? Like, what has happened? And so and this is where I can't talk too much, because I have a hydro flask. I have a 40-ounce hydro flask. But I bought this thing like 6 years ago. And it's actually like an eBay. It's like a knockoff hydro flask, which actually works good. So I don't really care. But I bought it for like $17, like 6 years ago. I'm not paying. Actually, I probably would pay $60 for a quality like hydro flask or quality like water thing. So I can't knock my son for it. But I'm not going to be buying many. I'm not going to have like more. And the thing is like, I'm going to like this knockoff one I've had for like probably 6 years, and I'll probably have it for 3-4 more years. It's kind of like my cell phones, right? Like my cell phones, I keep those things for like 2 or 3 years. I keep them in like an OtterBox so I can drop them and so I can mistreat them. And I've never, that's not true. I've broken a screen, but it's because it had the rounded screen and my OtterBox couldn't protect it. And so I had to get rid of that phone. But I keep everything. And like, this is what trips me out is like, I don't buy stuff. But everybody else in the world seems like they're buying things. And then when I hear like people complain about being poor, like I'm like, when I was a kid, poor meant like you didn't have a TV, you didn't have a car, you didn't have food. Yeah, like that's what poor today like I don't even know what poor means. Like what does poor mean? Like you're fat, you eat too much, you have an Escalade. Like you bought a brand new car, you got a 70-inch TV. What poor basically means you don't know how to manage your money. And that's going to offend a lot of people, but I don't care. I think that just means you don't know how to manage your money. It means you spend all of your money before you get your next paycheck. I think that's what that means. Today's poor. Because if you knew how to manage your money, you could definitely afford like gas to the store and like food and stuff.
Well, I think this is another good point to be had is if you're not buying your kids $60 cups, and I'm not saying that there aren't poor people who can't afford these things. Of course, there are poor people who are really poor, but I'm talking about the people who believe that they're poor and they're getting their nails done and buying their kids cups and cell phones and like all these things that are not basic needs. And maybe your kid needs a cell phone. I mean, depending on your situation, but there are certainly situations where you can get cheap cell phones like at Walmart for $40 or $25. I mean, there's just other ways, and it is astounding how we believe that our children are going to be unhappy if we don't buy them these things, and the pressure that people are feeling, and it's all kind of crazy.
But everybody's buying everything. Like everybody buys everything and they don't think twice about it. You know, that's what I'm saying is like, I've never bought a new car in my life.
I have a couple times.
Well, and my point is, is I think I had this conversation with my kids the other day, and like I think they were actually kind of right in some ways, and I was wrong, and vice versa. But I was like, I don't think you should be. I think you should buy like cars that just barely get you by, cheap cars that run, that are um, reliable still, but they're like maybe ugly or rusted or whatever the problem is. I think you should be buying those types of cars until you like pay for a house. And I'm not saying buy a house. I mean, purchase your house. Like you own the house. Like I feel like there should be priorities. And then, like they were like, well, what about apartments? And I was like, well, I don't think you should live in an apartment and buy a brand new car, which I think is what most people do. And I kind of like thought about that one. I kind of take it back because I don't know that I'd buy a house today anymore. And houses aren't for everybody. Maybe you want to live in an apartment, and
I have to agree with that.
But I don't think you should own a brand new car, live in an apartment, and live paycheck to paycheck, or maybe have some credit card bills. Or this is like you should have no credit card bills, and you should have some investments going. And if you have some things like that, then go buy a brand new car. Sure, go ahead. But like you got to have your ducks in a row. And I don't think anybody does anymore. I don't think that's a concept. I think everybody's just like 16-year-olds. Like when we were 16 and you got a car, like, man, you bought like a $200 car. And you were just like, I mean, that's just what I'm doing. I'm buying a piece of crap because it's what I can afford. But now I feel like 16-year-olds are buying like brand new cars. And like, this is the story I talk about with BMWs all the time is, my BMW was like a $50,000 car in 1983, and not anybody could just buy that. Like you had to be a doctor or a lawyer. You had to be somebody special that made a lot of money. Like they just didn't loan the money out. Today, there's just 18, 20-year-olds buying $30,000, $40,000 cars, $50,000 cars. They're just buying these cars that are like, and going in debt.
I think it's like that post you did the other day where sayings that need to come back or whatever it was.
Live within your means.
Live within your means. It's something that we should be teaching people, and we're teaching them the opposite. We're teaching them that they're not worth anything if they don't have all these things.
But why?
Slavery.
Well, the reason why is because we need to spend more money.
Yes.
And that's why debt is so rampant today, is because people like the not the consumerism, but the what do we live in?
The economy?
No,
capitalist.
The capitalist economy that we do says we need to make more all the time. Well, if people are just working jobs, not going in debt, we kind of max that out. And so they're like, well, here's some credit cards because that way we can get more money from you.
Yeah.
And so we did that. We got more money. And so now we encourage going into debt. But I think we also encourage bankruptcy now, because if you don't encourage bankruptcy, then, well, that doesn't sound so good to go into debt. So go into debt. And hey, if you can't do your debt, then guess what happens? We're just going to forgive all that debt. We're going to take a tax write-off because you don't pay us back. And then we're going to let you go into debt again and spend that money. And then we'll take it. It's like they found this loophole for everything. But this is what we're teaching you is you need to spend money that you don't have. And then it's okay to just not pay that debt off, which I feel like it's an integrity thing. Like if you say, hey, I'm going to pay this back, I feel like you should genuinely try to pay it back, not just be like, well, hey, this is what we're doing. We don't pay things back. But I don't know anymore, I guess. Like, if that's the game we're playing, then it's almost like, well, maybe I should just go in debt and then go bankrupt. I mean, if that's what we're doing, and it seems like that's what we're doing, but I don't know.
Yeah, I have to agree with you about the integrity thing.
Well, but it's almost built in that we don't want people to have integrity, because then they're just going to struggle and they're not going to pay it back anyway, and they're just going to be poor, and we don't want that. We'd rather just have them reset and then do it again. You know what I mean? So it's almost built in, like we should have bankruptcy and we should allow these people to just keep going through these cycles. But it's slavery.
The whole system that's just broken.
Yeah, it's slavery because you'll never get out of working. You'll never be financially independent. I mean, this is what I always wondered about watching the generation older than us, is I always looked at these people and maybe they weren't doing credit card debt, but they were doing not saving. Not saving was like my mom's generation. And then our generation started getting to like credit card debt, and the newest generation's just like don't even know what's happening. But I always looked at like the people my mom's age, and I always used to go like, what is going to happen when all these people turn 65, which is just happening right now? What is going to happen to these people like when you can't retire?
Yeah.
And that's happening now. All these people are like not retiring, and that's, you see the 90-year-old Walmart person greeting, because but it's going to be nobody's, like it used to be before the generation before my mom's, everybody retired, and maybe you didn't retire with a ton of money, but you still retired. And now it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm going to have to work till I'm 70, 75. You know, I don't know. COVID kind of saved and messed all that up at the same time. You know, everybody's just going broke now, but
Yeah.
Anyway, it's interesting how we're being pushed to buy, how we're pushed to go into debt.
Well, I mean, and our country is trillions of dollars in debt, and they just keep printing more money. It's all just.
Well, but I think that's what's happening. So they took all of our money, like when you just had a job and you didn't have debt, and that wasn't enough. So then they made you go into debt, and they took all that money too. And so now that you're into debt and everybody's just kind of maxed out on debt and we can't take that any further, well, what's the next thing? Well, they taxed us to the maximum. So now they're taking all that money too. But you can't just keep taxing. You can't tax more than there already are, and they know that. And so that's what's happening. That's why COVID exists, is because then they can print money. And then when you print money, that causes inflation. So but where did that money go that you printed? Well, the money that you printed went to their pockets, like as in form of a tax. And then whose pocket did it come out of? Well, it's coming out of yours and mine through inflation. So people don't understand that inflation is a tax, but they figured out they can't tax us anymore without us going crazy. So they're like, okay, so we've taken through all these levels. How do we get more money out of these people? It was COVID. So they wrote, I don't know how many billions of dollars for COVID relief they wrote into. So they took that money from us and we paid through inflation. That's how you got that money, was inflation. And now we're like, oh, we want more money. So they went to Ukraine, and they $100 and something billion in Ukraine that it's not even, we don't live, none of that money is going to Ukraine. It's all going to my buddy and his friends and all this stuff. It's all getting sorted out. And now that's not enough money. And so now we're sending money to Israel. And I haven't been keeping up with Israel. If you watch one of our last episodes, I'm decided not to keep up with anything.
Not either.
But I guess, nothing. But I've seen some things that are like, we're paying for both sides of the war in Israel, which is like, stop it. Like, stop it. It's just, how can we how can we just completely wipe them out? And so that's what's happening. So that's what I feel like consumerism is. That's what capitalism, well, that's not what capitalism is about, but it's kind of what it turned into, is just, there's people that just want everything they can get out of us, and this is what they're doing. And that's why I feel like everything's kind of coming to a head, is what are you going to do when everything's taken? Because when everything's taken from us, it also kind of gets taken from them, because everything is collapsing. Like the dollar is collapsing, like inflation. This is what I talk about with a piñata at a party. Somebody smashes that piñata and it's just like, mine. And it's just like they go in there and take it all without thinking of any of the repercussions. And so it's going to be interesting, but I don't know.
To say the least, interesting.
Yeah. I don't know what it's kind of like just how it's like, it seems like a normal progression at the same time of greed.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the thing is like I've always thought about is like how if you're like Jeff Bezos, I think that guy what did they say he had like $200,000 he could spend every single day since Jesus was born for like 2,000 years or something. For like 2,000 years, he could spend $200,000 every single day or something. And it's like, why would you go to work? Like, how would you not just go just have fun? Like, what is the most fun thing you could think of? And maybe he does, I don't know, but
I imagine he does.
there's people out there that just want more money, more money.
Yeah, like it's never enough.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think they get addicted to some like sort of power trip or something that they're, I don't know.
Well, I don't know at like what point are you fine? I mean, you buy $1 million house and you buy a couple $1 million of this, couple $1 million of that. I mean, how much money does a person need? And so this is where that quote comes in: is a person who needs little has everything, and a person who needs everything never has anything. Because if you have greed like that, and you have a need for things and money, you will never ever be satisfied ever. I mean, and that's what we were just talking about. Is like they want tens of millions of dollars, but they want more than that. It's you can live a fine lifestyle with much less,
Much less.
but nobody's teaching that. So we're caught up in a cycle of spend more because you need more instead of, hey, just learn to live with little, because teaching you to live with little is not going to help my friend out that owns a business. It's all about spending. So it's a weird cycle. And I don't see a way out of it.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it's too far gone for there to be a way out of it.
Well, and I think on like a country level or like a global level, it's like I don't know what to do about that. But I think on a personal level, that's what I've been talking about for a while is learning to live like Native Americans, you know. And yeah, I mean, maybe that does mean living in a teepee in the woods or something and hunting and gathering. But number one, that gives you freedom. Well, I mean, I think that is the entire point is it gives you freedom. Like there's nobody that controls you. I mean, you got to find the land to hunt on and squat on and all that stuff. But um, if you do, that's true freedom. Like nobody, like you don't need anything from anybody. But I don't know. It's like nobody wants to go there because nobody wants to sacrifice their comfort for freedom.
Yeah, it's a conundrum, I guess.
Yeah. So how? But this is what we were starting to talk about. Is like, so how far does this go? Like another thing I've noticed is if you look at a closet from a house built in the 1960s, say 1970s, the closet is like a sliding door that's like, I mean, it's your closet like 8 feet long,
I think 6 feet. Mine
six
was
foot.
6 feet growing up, and my house was built in the 60s.
Okay. Well, did you have a master though? Master's probably a
My
little bigger.
mom's closet, my parents' closet was 6 feet.
Okay, so 6 feet, and that was you shared that with your spouse.
Yeah.
So you had 3 feet of closet space. Maybe you had a dresser, you had 3 feet. I think it's probably common for a woman these days to have a bedroom for a closet.
Oh, I think it is very common.
Or, I mean, walk-in closets are a thing, but like walk-in closets have to be getting bigger, right?
Yeah, I would say there's small bedrooms now for a lot of people.
Well, how many women like when they go house shopping are like the closet is a focus?
I used to watch this HGTV program, and it was where they'd go look for houses, couples would, and every single time the woman would be like, this is plenty of room for me in the closet. And like, they'd be like, you can have this tiny little space. So it is such a common thing that the women get the closet and men are just kind of like in the spare bedroom or something.
Yeah, or you have to buy a wardrobe closet from IKEA or something for your crap in. But I mean, that's to the point, right? Is stuff. The
Yeah.
evolution of how much stuff do we have? So women need an extra bedroom for stuff, and that's a normal thing. And then the families no longer park cars in the garage because that's full of stuff. But that's even evolved. Like your garage isn't enough, so now you need storage units. So you've got a storage unit full of stuff, a garage is full of stuff, you've got bedrooms for closets, and then you're walking around with like 10 different $60 mugs that you're drinking water out of. You know, it's, and this is what I'm saying. And then these people might complain about not having enough, might complain about being poor. And like, dude, it's insane. Like what makes people complain about being poor?
I don't know, but another thing about that is I was thinking, I haven't bought clothes in a while, but I think I bought like a swimsuit or something for our vacation. And it's more exciting when you get something for yourself once in a while than it is if you're just getting stuff all the time. Like, it's actually more fun.
Yeah.
It just becomes part of like your day to day, and it's not very exciting.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Well, and so this is what I've tried to understand is I don't spend money like that at all. Like I don't we started cinching down and so I stopped buying Starbucks and I started brewing my own
Yeah,
coffee at
I think
home.
Starbucks was our splurge, I guess you'd call it.
Well, it was one of them, but I mean that's not even a splurge to people, right? Like that's just a normal everyday cost. So we don't do Starbucks anymore. If we're gonna drink coffee, it's at home with the. I buy the cheapest coffee I can find. Like Folgers is not cheap enough. Like Great Value is not cheap enough. Like it's you know what I mean. But this is what I'm saying about how I spend money is I don't buy Folgers because it's too expensive. But I don't like my hair is growing out because I'm not buying haircuts right now because we're cutting back. Clothes I think people would call me a liar if they knew how often I bought clothes. Like I probably buy like a couple pairs of pants every 2 to 3 years, shorts every
Yeah,
two to three
well,
years. And I'm not talking about like
you bought
15
those
pairs,
pants like 2 years ago, like several of them, but
five, 4 pairs.
yeah,
I bought 4 pairs of pants several years ago, and they're fine.
yeah.
Shirts, I'm probably hurting on shirts, but I bought like one shirt in the last 5 years, 6 years. And that's not true. I bought some other ones, but it's like I don't buy these things that people are buying like on a weekly basis, a monthly basis. They're buying clothes on a weekly basis, buying coffees, they're buying cars, they're buying all this. And so like the thing that makes me trip out is like we've talked about this. Am I poor? Am I poor because I don't buy these things, but I'm not like just storing my dollars in the bank account at the same time. I'm not like super rich. But the thing is like I don't need clothes on a monthly basis. And so like let's say I am poor or we are poor, but we have less than these people that are crying about being poor, but we have less than them and we're not crying about being poor. Like that is a hard thing to understand, isn't it?
It's a hard thing to understand for sure. It's a hard thing to understand this. Like, people feel poor if they can't like buy their coffee or some clothes. I mean, it's not that I never buy clothes, but I don't buy clothes like a lot of women buy clothes.
Yeah, but I mean like even like my truck, I've had my truck for 22 years, you know, and like, have I ever wanted a new truck? Like, yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, it would be fun to have
It would be
a
awesome.
new truck
But
for
there's
sure.
the, brain's not working tonight. Delayed gratification, the benefit you get from not buying stuff all the time. But that's kind of a kick in the butt too, is because I feel like I do nothing but delayed gratification. And then because I do that, there's other people that are just like, woo, spending money. And then it's like they get some sort of kickback. You know, they get like some sort of discount from the government or like a return, or they get, you know what I mean? Like the irresponsibleness of the people, like they get some sort of kickback. So I feel like delayed gratification does help me, but at the
I
same
think
time,
it's bigger than that. I think it's character building. So, not that, like, don't get me wrong. Like, if I become a millionaire, I'm probably going to have 2 cars in the garage with a new garage. But I think that's living within your means. Like, I wouldn't look like Jay Leno or anything. But
but what's the point, right? What was the point to all this? And the point to me, the point to life is happiness.
yes,
And so delayed gratification and having less and being happy with having less can easily bring happiness.
I think that's the key, though, is understanding that these things aren't necessary to be happy.
Yeah, but it's almost the opposite, right? The more stuff you buy, it leads you into this spoiled mentality and wanting more, and it makes you more unhappy.
I think so.
But it's what people bought into and what people are doing, so it's kind of interesting. Like being poor but being happy with being poor is like an ideal situation. Like you actually, I guess if you do have money, you've got to have discipline in order to just be happy, I think, which is the opposite, because
I would think so.
everybody thinks that money buys happiness, but it's actually the opposite. Being happy with what you've got is what buys happiness.
Yeah, I think you would need to. I mean, I think Andy Frisella is a good example to me because he clearly has nice cars and flies around and spends his money and enjoys it, but he built that. He came from nothing. He used to sleep in the back of his store. And, like, I think if you build yourself and you are happy to begin with, is like key.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan seems like another person who isn't frivolous. Like, he's super happy. He appears
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, so I think we're just rambling about how much stuff people have, how much stuff people buy, you know, and it's all weird and it's all taken in the wrong direction. But I don't know how many people would agree with what we're even saying. Like, I think when you tell somebody like you should have less and not be so spoiled, I don't think many people are going to understand what we're even saying.
No, I think we might irritate a lot of people with this subject.
Yeah, it's fine too.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. It's just our opinion. I'm super curious to hear everybody else's opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, we'll call this one a little bit early. I think the last one was early too, right?
I think it was earlier than this.
Oh, well, so same old Spotify, YouTube. We're on Facebook and Instagram now. Trying to post more on Instagram, Facebook. Just inspirational things or things that we think about. And it's cool. We got some interaction from you guys, and there's a couple people sharing our ideas, and that's cool too. And that's, I think that's all we're trying to do is just share thoughts and
Some dialogue going.
Yeah, and you know, see how crazy we are to other people, and I mean, whatever. It's just this is just life, right? And that'll be kind of the fun part is um, making these videos, and maybe somebody will look back on them and be like, well, what did these guys think? Like, what did they do?
Yeah. What'd they think 20 years ago?
Yeah,
Check out this
yeah,
bizarre couple.
yeah. Especially that in 20 years. But, so anyway, I guess we're good for now.
Hasta luego.
See you next week.